Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. Welcome to a Thursday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We got a good lineup today. It's Thursday. You know what that means. Brent Beaird, our college football analyst. Second portion of today's program, we have Mike Ridaught from the prepzone.com and Main Street Daily News, breaking down what's going on in high school football and maybe touch on a little volleyball as well. But let's waste no time. Well, if you missed it last night, UCF played a Wednesday night game there in Orlando against the SMU Mustangs. Big win for UCF. They go to 4-1. No college football tonight. You have pro football tonight, but a lot of college games on Friday and obviously on Saturday. David asked, is anyone else having audio issues? Just check that there, producers, see if we're good to go there. Let's head to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Well, Shane, I'm doing well. Enjoying the cool mornings. That's been refreshing, and let us know that we're in October. I did enjoy the UCF game last night. Disappointed there's no college games on tonight. That's a real missed opportunity for college football, but hopefully we will start getting some action soon, right?
Yes, I love action.
I do too. These Tuesday, Wednesday games and action. And Shane, I also wanted to mention that I was very appreciative. My twin brother and I had a chance to be the guest speakers at the Macon, Georgia Touchdown Club on Monday night. We enjoyed that immensely, talking college football. So mention your name a few times and the podcast. So glad to be back and ready for another big Saturday.
So could anybody tell the difference in y'all?
Well, we were that. The funny thing about it is, both of us have been doing radio up in that area for years, and the Bill Shanks, who's the host of the main sports talk show in that area, said that one of the reasons that you guys needed to come up here is there are people who listen to his show that think we're only one person and are playing a joke on people, but they found out that's not true.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, because y'all look identical and sound exactly alike. All right, Brent, let's jump into the notes. The NCAA, they finally put a date on the transfer portal. What do you think about it?
Well, they've tweaked the date from what they did before. The new date is April 15th through 30th. It was May 1st through 15th. And basically all this is to let the coach know of their intent to transfer. So that's basically your change in it. I think what they did overall, which was to move the windows tighter. In other words, you don't have 6 months in order to transfer. You've got basically a couple of windows, and I think that's probably pretty positive, frankly, to have that and to make up your mind. So that it helps with the roster management, and it certainly lets these players know that this is your opportunity. If you want to make a change here, this is when you can do it.
Yeah. Brent, obviously there's been some coaching changes. We've talked about, I don't know when Paul Chryst was fired this past weekend, so we haven't talked about that. He had like a 73 or 74% winning percentage there. And I don't know if it's a good move by Wisconsin or a bad move. Jim Leonard, who was a teammate of mine with the Buffalo Bills, is now the interim coach. He's a really good football coach, by the way. But basically, this is a two-horse race. I feel like it's going to be Jim Leonard if they play well the rest of the year. If not, it's Lance Leipold's job.
Well, I think what they're doing here is they're giving Jim Leonard an audition. So he's coaching the rest of the season. Paul Chryst was 67-26 at Wisconsin. This was a real surprise, Shane, frankly, that they fired him. I think they thought the program was getting stale. But I mean, my goodness, he was 43-18 in the Big Ten, 5-1 in bowl games, 3 divisional titles. That's pretty strong, frankly, to be fired. But in this day and age, things happen differently. The AD at Wisconsin said he wanted to make. By the way, it's not Barry Alvarez anymore. He retired, so they have a different AD now. But that AD said that he wanted to he didn't think the program was going in the wrong direction, so let's make a change, and that's what happened.
We got a Facebook Live here. I meant to bring this up. Dan says, you now have kids like at SMU. The kids just stop playing to save their redshirt year and wait on the portal. Did you hear about that?
Yes, there were several of them who did that, and they're waiting. They played 4 games, and then they're waiting now to get into the transfer portal and move on. So that may be kind of a new strategy as far as what players want to do. I don't know. It's a real risk for these guys, frankly. So they are. In other words, they got 4 games worth of tape, and now they want to see what they can do elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Out of the schools that are looking for coaches that have fired them so far, you got Nebraska, Arizona State, Georgia Tech, Colorado, and Wisconsin. And there may be somebody else that I'm missing there. But out of those 5, Brent, obviously Nebraska is the most appealing because they're in the Big Ten. The history there, although the history's way, way, way years ago.
Yeah.
What do you, there's talk about maybe Dan Mullen's going to Georgia Tech. I think Dan Mullen would be a good fit at Arizona State. I think it'd be easier to win at Arizona State than it would be at Georgia Tech.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Georgia Tech just now again, you've got a couple of schools here, Colorado and Georgia Tech. People may have forgotten this, but Colorado and Georgia Tech actually split the national championship in 1990. That's about, and Colorado probably is a better job than people realize. And I still appreciate what Paul Johnson did at Tech with his option offense and how well they did during that time. Now, Deion Sanders has also been involved with this as far as the rumor mill and where he might go with this. But no, I would agree with Mullen at Arizona State. You could go at Arizona State and probably win fairly quickly. Colorado's going to take some doing, as Georgia Tech will too. Yes, Arizona State, particularly in the Pac-12 right now, and where they are again with USC and UCLA leaving for the Big Ten, that would be a real opportunity for Arizona State.
Everybody's on here said Dan and Emory could be reunited at Arizona State. Emory's got to be close to being done. It seems like he's been playing college football forever.
Yeah, really has.
Yeah. Dan says Colorado and Colorado State are the only FBS teams that have not won a game. How Colorado has fallen since 1990. Yeah, out of those 5 openings, Georgia Tech and Colorado both were national champs when I was playing in high school. I mean, not high school, when I was playing in college.
Well, and it was a split national championship. at that time. But that is really hard to believe that those schools were considered that good back then. But I mean, again, they've got some tradition that people have forgotten about over the time, and it would take some rebuilding, but it could be done.
Chris Story Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Story Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titanmore Hotline. All right, Brent, I want to ask you this question from John on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law. I know you're probably going to touch on it when we get to A&M, but he says, Brent, how unhappy are the A&M boosters? Does it get worse after this Saturday? Are they willing to pay that big buyout?
No, that's not going to happen. He's not going to get fired. I know they're not happy, and that is understandable because they are heading. If they lose to Alabama, and I think they will, A&M is going to be a situation at that point that they'll have 3 losses, and you're looking at another 8-4 type season. What might save Jimbo is they are expected to be really good next year when these recruiting classes.
Well, who's going to play quarterback for him next year?
Well, that's a great question. Now, the guy that he loves is Connor Weigman. Weigman is just a freshman, and I really do wonder. Now, he was asked about him this week. What Jimbo said was, we give him reps every week. He takes reps with the 2s. Not the 1s, but the 2s. He is very knowledgeable. I think he's going to be a very good player. That's who he's depending on. That's who he thinks is probably going to be the quarterback. But, and Shane, you can deal with this better than anybody. The problem right now is there are a lot of people that think that Jimbo has gotten very stale in his offense. And we'll talk about how bad it is in a few minutes. But that he for lack of a better word, that Jimbo needs an offensive coordinator. I mean, he's got one in name and title, but Jimbo runs the offense. So, Shane, the question is, if you're Jimbo, do you give up some of that power and authority you got with the offense and be more of the CEO and see if that might help the program?
Yeah. Interesting Facebook Live here. I'm going to comment on this one. Scott says, maybe not at Tech, but Dan Mullen will be great in the ACC. His offense alone is worth 5 or 6 wins. If he were to lose Todd Grantham's number and gets a real DC, he can win 9 games a year in the AC at some place like Virginia or Virginia Tech. Okay, so Scott, my question to you is, obviously you don't like Todd Grantham. The defense is worse now than it was last year with Todd Grantham. So my point is there's a common denominator there. Florida has not had great defensive talent the last couple of years. So Todd Grantham is on Nick Saban's staff. If he wasn't a good coach, Nick Saban would not have him there.
True.
So it's amazing to me because I think Grantham's a good coach. I think he blitzed a lot because he knew they were limited on defense. Well, Patrick Toney does not blitz, and people are just running up and down the field on us. We just don't have very good defensive talent. And I will argue with anybody any day of the week on that. All right, OU, Texas, the Red River rivalry. Boy, these two teams ain't real good, Brent.
No.
But they're playing their normal neutral site game. They're not complaining about losing a recruiting weekend like Kirby does.
Correct.
What do you see happening in this game?
That's a really good question. I think the amazing thing is the last time Oklahoma lost to TCU and Kansas State in the same season, they were unranked in 2014. The unusual thing about Texas OU is, tell me what this says about Texas. Texas is a touchdown favorite, marking only the 4th time in the last 21 games, and the first time since 2009 that Texas is favored against Oklahoma. Oh, wow. That's a mouthful, is it not? Yeah. The last 2 times both of them were unranked was 1998.
That's crazy. That is crazy. That's a long time. But You never know what happened in that game. I've been to it. It's phenomenal atmosphere there for sure. Brent, you're the top defensive teams in America. Okay, you got this is points allowed.
Yes,
8.4 Minnesota, 8.8 Iowa. Then you got Georgia, Alabama, and Michigan. Well, I hate to say it, but with Illinois, Minnesota, and Iowa in the top three giving up points in America, it's because the offenses they play stink.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. I mean, look, Iowa's offense is look, they've got a good coaching staff, but that offense this year is almost high school like. It's so poor. I mean, they've had more punts in a game than points. So Shane's point's a really good one with that. We've also got to consider who they're with these defensive numbers. Who are they playing in the offenses this year in the Big Ten are lacking.
Yeah. Bill on Facebook Live is saying defensive coordinator recruit also. Yeah, I don't know what he's saying there, but
well, some do and some don't. Frankly.
Right, and just because you're the defensive or the offensive coordinator, you don't make the final say on who, because they're not recruiting all the players. They have their territory, and then you recruit your territory. You bring no matter what position. So, for example, Corey Raymond, who's a defensive back coach, phenomenal coach, his area, he may not have any defensive backs that he's recruiting in his area. It may be all offensive skill players, but he has to take those players back to the head coach, and the head coach makes that decision. So, anyway, let's talk about some of the problem areas of the teams in the SEC, Brent.
Yeah, these are really, I think, explain some of the problems that a lot of these teams have got. Okay, Tennessee, for instance, this is amazing. Their defense has given up 60 plays of 10-plus yards in 4 games and a whopping 18 of 20-plus yards. That's so you see where that needs to go. Now, the Kentucky, and I give Matt Hayes of Saturday Down South credit for this list. Will Levis has been sacked 19 times already. Last year, Shaney was sacked 22 for the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, their offensive line's horrible, absolutely horrible.
Yeah, it's a real struggle right now. LSU got Kayshon Boutte, who is one of the better wide receivers in the nation. 11 catches for 97 yards. That is a real problem. Ole Miss at quarterback. This is why they're running the ball. Their quarterbacks have completed 57% of their passes. Last year, it was 66% and 71% in 2020. So you see some of the differences with that, too. Spencer Rattler already has 7 interceptions at South Carolina. Luther Burden, the wide receiver, their best player, Gator fans pay attention to this, has 20 touches in 5 games. So they've got to give him the ball more than they do. Vanderbilt has improved, but they're still last in the SEC in total defense and scoring defense. So, and some of these things really describe what's wrong with particular teams during this time.
Yeah, it's we'll get to it, but I don't think Will Levis is playing this week. I don't know if you've heard that, Brent. Have you heard that?
I have. Listen, we've got this. To me, is the big theme of the week. We've got maybe 3 quarterbacks: Bryce Young, Will Levis, and KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. None of those guys may play this week. That is significant if that happens. So, and my understanding is, I give Matt Jones from the Kentucky Sports Network credit for this. It's Shane. It's not his finger. It's actually another injury, and they're not saying what it is. But there is real doubt whether or not he even plays. And again, as you saw, Shane, he really got beat up in that game. And look, I know I know he's a tough kid, but when you get hit and sacked as much as he was, Shane, it's not easy to come back from that beating, frankly.
Yeah. Well, so we'll see what happens there. Let's go ahead and move around the league. As you just mentioned, in Alabama, Bryce Young has an AC shoulder sprain. Brent, he's going to play. He probably will practice a little bit today. He may be throwing on the side. He may not throw until tomorrow. They'll shoot him up. They'll get ahead 28-0 and then let the other kid come in there and run around. That's just how I feel like it's going to be.
Yeah, well, and see, part of the his play may be limited for this reason too. I think they feel they could beat A&M even without him if they had to, because A&M is struggling so much offensively. When they're going to have him is next week at Tennessee. That's what's going to be crucial. The offensive line played much better for Alabama. They only allowed 5 sacks on the season. DeMoy Kennedy, a linebacker, has a torn ACL, so unfortunately he is out for the year. They still have trouble at wide receiver. They're dropping a lot of passes, but the running game, this is why you go get a Jahmyr Gibbs, Shane. Had over 200 yards in the win over Arkansas. That was an important game for Alabama. Like the Texas game, you go on the road, you play a good team, you get pushed, and you find out what you can do. So, and a lot was said in the preseason about this game. As Shane mentioned earlier, we're not even sure who the quarterback's going to be. Max Johnson has been hurt. Haynes King came in. We mentioned Connor Weigman. Will they play him? That's a possibility at that point. In Jimbo Fisher's last 15 games versus Division I competition, A&M has 12 passing plays of 30 yards or more. That tells you a little bit about how much they have struggled.
We got a text. This is Bubba in Charlotte. He says, talk about the Mississippi State aerial attack against an Arkansas pass defense that has been less than stellar this weekend in Stark Vegas. Also, this has to be one of the largest lines ever in the Georgia-Auburn game at 30. Will Brian Harsin make it through the regular season? Yeah, we'll touch on all that, Bubba. Appreciate the text up in Charlotte. But yeah, Mississippi State is hosting Arkansas. Arkansas is coming in at 3-2, man. They may be 3-3 by the time they leave Stark Vegas. I think Will Rogers will throw for 500 yards this week.
Well, I think that's probably true. The Arkansas problem started when Jalen Catalon was injured, and he's out for the year. He's frankly their best defensive player, along with Drew Sanders. So Mississippi State, that is just playing tremendous football. Will Rogers throws 50 times every game, 3 touchdowns last week. But what is really improved and continues to do so is the Mississippi State run game. I mean, they ran for 144 yards, and people think, well, that's not much, but for Mississippi State, it is. And Arnett, the defense coordinator for Mississippi State, is really good. Their defense has been tremendous. I'm curious what you think of Emmanuel Forbes, Shane. Get this. He blocked the field goal, intercepted 2 passes, returned 1 for a touchdown, and has having another tremendous year. So Bubba's point is a good one in that. Now, look, what Mississippi State, and Shane can explain this, what they do is not, it's not going to grab your attention. They don't go down the field a lot, and that can cause them problems against really good teams. But what they do is, frankly, tremendous. Their passing game is almost their running game, and they do it really, really well. And Shane, I'm with you. I still think Arkansas is a very good football team, but this game could be a blowout before it's over.
Yeah, it could. With Arkansas having one of the worst pass defenses in America, I think Will Rogers has a field day. I think they will have to run the ball because I think they'll drop 8 into coverage at times. The oldest rivalry in the conference, Auburn's going to the Hedges. as Bubba said a few minutes ago, 30-point spread. I saw this statement by this Auburn center on the Georgia defensive front. He said, quote, "If we can keep them out of their third down packages, we can demolish them." What the hell tape is he watching?
Yeah, that's one of the silliest things I've heard in quite a while. I would imagine that Brandon Counsell, who said it, will get some counseling before the game comes on. Look, in the last 17 games, Auburn is 3-14 against Georgia. Georgia's dominated this series, and the same thing will happen. Now, I have heard from some Auburn beat writers that there is a thought. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but that if they get beat by Georgia bad, that they may fire Brian Harsin Saturday night.
Well, they're going to get beat bad.
Yeah. Now, here's a reality. I give Harsin a lot of credit. They played hard against LSU. They just don't have the players. And now look, they got up 17-0. They let the lead slip. That's on them. I get that. But for what Harsin has done with them, they have not given up by any stretch of the imagination. They really don't have a quarterback. They're down to their third one, frankly. And if Robbie Asher gets hurt, they may end up putting Tank Bigsby in a shotgun, frankly. So yes, this is but look, at the same time, Georgia has not played well as of late. They've had 2 straight games. Offensive line has struggled. They've been out of any kind of rhythm on offense. Could Auburn keep it close? I don't think so, because they've really struggled in the second half. But again, I think you'll see a better Georgia team. Javon Bullard also returned for Georgia after he had some legal issues. So, oldest rivalry coming up again in Athens.
This is Chris on the Tatum Our text line. He wants to know, Brent, who do you think's better 5 games in, the Dogs or the Crimson Tide?
Well, Georgia was at first. Alabama's catching up a little bit. I mean, I think right now, when you look at all the all the good things and the not so good things, I still think it's pretty even. Frankly, I mean, Alabama's got receivers who are dropping the ball. Offensive line is finally coming together. You know, that the Bryce Young thing is going on, and then I just mentioned all the issues with Georgia. So I'm not trying to evade the question. I'm just saying I think they're both fairly even right now if they played each other. If you ask me what it would be, I don't think either team would be favored by more than what, Shane? 1, 2, or 3 points?
Right. Before we move on to the Gators, Andy asks, Brent, if you had your choice of any SEC QB to lead your team through the rest of the season, who would you pick?
Oh, I think you'd still got to go with Bryce Young. When Young's healthy, Shane, he is what he's capable of doing. And Shane can explain this better than me. But when he sees the field so well, and his arm can throw it at different angles, he's still an amazing quarterback.
Yeah, he's a tremendous thrower. Brent, before we move on, Brent asked here on Facebook Live, is SMU trash or is UCF pretty good? They looked really good last night. Plumlee played well. They're 4-1, but they're not the UCF of the past. Plumlee has not played well. I guess he played okay last night, but he's been struggling throwing the football, and that's why he got moved, quite honestly, from quarterback at Ole Miss, because he wasn't a good enough thrower. But he's perfect for what UCF does. They're a decent team. I don't think they win their league, though. And next year, they'll be in the Big 12. The Gators are hosting the Missouri Tigers, who are 5-5 since they've come into the league against the Gators. We can't beat these jokers. They played extremely hard against Missouri. Against Georgia. I don't know what team is going to show up for Missouri. What do you see in this game, Brent?
Well, Brady Cooks is a good quarterback, or he is a developing quarterback. Cody Schrader, running back, is decent. They've got, believe it or not, they've got the leading receiver in the SEC in Dominic Lovett. And Luther Burden, we mentioned a few minutes ago, Burden Burden, is a really good player. They don't get him the ball enough. Mookie Cooper is a guy who can make some pretty good catches too. Missouri obviously should have beat Auburn, and they had a chance to beat Georgia. I still think Florida probably is better, and I think they will win the game. Frankly, emotionally, I don't know what Missouri has left in the tank after two very close emotional games.
Yeah, that's how I think they're going to be very flat, quite honestly. Probably the biggest game in the league is LSU hosting Tennessee. 11 o'clock start at Tiger Stadium. I don't know why I think this, Brent, but I got a feeling LSU is going to win this game somehow. I think LSU's defense is pretty good, pretty athletic. They can slow Tennessee down, but I think LSU is going to score at will.
Yeah, look, LSU is a better team, frankly. And think about this: Tennessee's got LSU and Alabama back to back, so that's going to be tough. Now, Jaden Daniels, for the quarterback for LSU, was 8 of 20 for 80 yards last week, and that's just not acceptable in the Auburn game. But they still won the game. I'm with Shane. I think LSU wins this game based on their defense. Even though Seven Banks, their defensive back, is out with a bruised spinal cord. Here's why. In a nutshell, LSU will win. Tennessee is 128 out of 131 teams in passing yards allowed, 309. So, hey, Shane, if you're a struggling quarterback, isn't your medicine being able to go against the ball secondary?
There's no question. Do you know if Jaden Daniels, they pulled him out of the game due to a knee injury against Auburn. What's his status? Have you heard?
Yes, no structural damage. He was limping. Kelly just decided he needed to take him out and put Nussmeier in. But as far as I've seen and heard this week, he will play. Now, another guy that really made a difference. Did you see John Emery, their running back, on a couple of runs? Shane,
yes.
that was unbelievable, wasn't
it? He reminds me of a combination of Dalton Hilliard and Leonard Fournette.
Yeah. That's a good combination. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Give us some nuggets before we get you out of here, Brent.
Ole Miss at Vanderbilt. Ole Miss is 5-0, first time since 2014. And again, we mentioned this earlier. They're okay in passing the ball, but where they're really doing well is running the ball. They're running for 260 yards per game. And Quinshon Junkins and Zach Evans are two of the better running backs in the league. And again, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, Vanderbilt is last in the SEC in total defense and scoring defense. So another rough year for them, I think, going on. So, and again, I know we've got Mike Ridaught coming up. Look forward to hearing him. Eric Gilbert at Georgia. They're bringing him along slowly. He hasn't played in several games. Kirby Smart commented on it yesterday. Said they're doing all they can to help him. There's some real off-the-field issues there, as your listeners know, and hopefully he'll be able to get himself together. But I'll mention what we mentioned a few minutes ago with Shane did. And by the way, congratulations for Kansas having game day there. It's amazing, game days at Kansas and TCU instead of Alabama, A&M, and OU in Texas. But again, watch for this for our listeners. Bryce Young of Alabama, KJ Jefferson of Arkansas, Will Levis of Kentucky. As Shane mentioned earlier about Levis, these three of the top quarterbacks in the league, may not even play Saturday because of various injuries. So I think that's one of the big things we need to look for coming up this weekend.
No doubt about it. Should be a great weekend. A lot of good games. Looking forward to it. Brent, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Enjoy it, pal. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird. We're going to take a timeout, come back, talk a little high school sports on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup with Mike Ridaught from Main Street Daily News. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogra State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ograinsurance.com. Give them a call, 352-240-1779. We're now going to go to the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, and we're joined by the man that does a tremendous job covering high school sports for the Prep Zone and Main Street Daily News, Mike Ridaught. Good morning, Mike. How are you, buddy?
Hey, good morning, Shane. How are you today?
Doing well. Let's start first talking a little high school volleyball, because in the North Central Florida area, there's some really good volleyball teams. I think they only have a couple of weeks left in the regular season. Give us a little rundown of who's doing well.
Yeah, obviously the best team in our area is Santa Fe High School, defending state champions. They've got, the reigning Florida Dairy Farmers Miss Volleyball player back this year, Jalen Stout. Stout had 392 kills last year, 392 assists. So you bring back that kind of firepower, you've got a chance to be pretty good, but she's got some really good talent around her as well. They've got 5 seniors on the roster. They just swept Gainesville High School. I was there on Tuesday night for that one. But they've only lost one game, Shane, and that was to a team from Texas. So I think that Santa Fe's got a good chance of repeating in Class 4A. Gainesville High School, interesting story about Gainesville High School. They're 17-6 this year with the loss to Santa Fe, despite the fact that they have lost 4 players to season-ending injuries. 3 of those players were starters, including Brooklyn Teeler, who is a USC commit. Yet somehow, Chancey Weiss, their head coach, who has dealt with her own health issues, Shane, she's just been back on the sidelines the last 4 games. Despite all of that, going on with the injuries, here they are ranked top 10 in the state in Class 6A. They've got Buchholz for senior night coming up on Monday. You mentioned winding down the regular season. Next week is the last week of the regular season for high school volleyball. So, it's going to get pretty interesting. 1A, I think, is, you got so much parity there with Bell High School and Newberry High School. And, we thought Dixie County was going to be pretty good because they were in the Final Four last year, and they've struggled this year, even though they've got a lot of their players back. Union County has been a surprise. So I almost kind of see 1A as kind of being wide open. But overall, volleyball is pretty good in the area this year.
Yeah, there's no question. John says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, Liberty County volleyball's #1 in 1A. Give us some love, Mike.
Well, they're not in our area. So,
Yeah. Well,
come postseason time, I'm sure we'll be talking about the contenders here.
yes, indeed. All right, let's switch to football. Let's start with the big classifications. Obviously, in North Central Florida, Buchholz is loaded, led by Creed Whittemore, the Florida signee. They have a lot of talent, and they are going to make a run this year. Now with the reclassification, they don't have to deal with any private schools, and they got Gainesville High actually tonight. That's going to get ugly. What can you tell us about Buchholz?
Some of their games have been pretty close, Shane. They kind of survived a scare. They went to Creekside and St. Johns County and came away with a 7-point win. But the final score in that one is not really indicative of the way that game went. I think it was a 20-point lead at the half, and then some crazy things happened in the second half, and made the final score closer than, I think they even scored a touchdown like a minute to play in the game. So, that one was pretty much in hand. And this district that they play in is really, really good. So it's not a foregone conclusion, this 4S District 3, that it's just going to be a cakewalk, because you've got Oakleaf out of Orange Park in that district, who Buchholz will play next week, Fleming Island, Bartram Trail. So it's going to be tough for Buchholz. It's probably, I would think it's got to be the toughest district in the state from top to bottom, when you consider all the teams in the district. But you mentioned probably a cakewalk tonight against Gainesville High School. Boy, how you go from 8 wins last year, a district championship, and here's GHS still searching for their first win of the season, almost 7 games in now. It's just been a tough year for Doc Pollard. But again, you take into consideration that 75% of the roster, freshmen and sophomores, they lost their starting quarterback, Shuby Coleman, who transferred to Williston. They lost their starting running back, Kyrie Edwards, who transferred to Williston. I know we'll probably talk about Williston here in a minute, but that's tough. So they're just having to go through one of those years, one of those down years. I don't know if they can get a win this year. They've got Matanzas at home next week. I think that's their best chance of getting a victory this year. But getting back to Buchholz for a moment, despite the fact that they only returned 3 starters, and don't get me wrong, really good starters on defense that they return. They're going to be playing football on Saturdays. Kendall Jackson, Gavin Hill, and Donnie Hebert. Somehow this Buchholz defense has been really good, especially on third down. So I like the Bobcats, obviously, to be in the postseason. But let's see if they can get things going with Creed Whittemore. Tell you, a heck of a game I saw, though, Shane. Best game of the year so far, without question, was their game at Vanguard a couple of weeks ago. And it came down to the last 14 seconds of the game. Reed Russo kicked a 37-yard field goal with 14 seconds to play to give Buchholz a 24-21 win at Vanguard.
Yeah, that was a good game, no question. Mike has a question for you on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mental Law. He says, why isn't Bradford getting more attention by the media?
I've given them some love. The thing about Bradford early has been the play of their defense. Bradford is one of about 6 or 7 teams, I think, that are undefeated in our area. Let's see, Bradford, Buchholz, Williston, Chiefland, Hawthorne, Union County, Ocall, but they're not they won't be in the FHSA playoffs. So those are your undefeated teams. And Bradford, they're playing really good football right now. They're actually going to get 2 wins this week, because they got to win. It was strange, first of all, to have games played on a Monday, Shane. In fact, Robbie Pruitt, the head coach at Union County, he said, I've been coaching for over 40 years. He said, that's the first time I've ever played on a Monday night. But Bradford played on Monday night, and they shut out Keystone Heights. That's another shutout for Bradford. I mentioned they're going to get 2 wins this week. They were supposed to finish their game at Baker County tonight. It was a 21-0 lead. Baker County just said, no, we're done with that one. So that's going to go down as a 21-0 win for Bradford. So that, coupled with that win against Keystone, Shane, that's their 5th shutout of the year. Wow. And the other game that they won was against Quincy Moreau. They only allowed 7 points. So their defense is really good. Bradford right now is the new FHSA rankings just came out. and Bradford is the #1 team in Class 2S. So I think the Tornadoes, Jamie Rogers has done an excellent job in his first year as a head coach there. I think Bradford, I think they got a chance to make a little bit of a run. I saw them and broadcast their game against Eastside. They shut out Eastside at Citizens Field, and they did it with their backup quarterback, Jeremiah McKenzie. So I was really impressed with Bradford. I think they got a chance to be pretty good. Manny Kobe is an outstanding football player for them. I'm still showing Bradford some love.
I got a text on the Titan Mar text line from Johnny. He says, Mike, what can you tell us about Oak Hall? Saw where they were undefeated and ranked 3rd, I believe, in the Sunshine State Athletic Conference.
Yeah, as I mentioned, they're not in the FHSAA, and that's another team that's undefeated. RJ Fuhr continues to have this team play well. They're 5-0 right now. They also played on Monday night, beat a winless Bronson team, which is 43-14. Bronson's still looking for their first win of the year. And I'm not sure yet the schedule that they've played, Oak Hall, has been good yet. But, one of their games, one of their wins was a first quarter win against St. Joseph Academy back when we had all that rain in the season opener. Harvest Community is a winnable game. Cedar Creek Christian, St. Francis Catholic. They will probably finish the season unbeaten. But the only problem is they only play 8 games, and then they get ready for the playoffs. They were upset in the first round of the playoffs last year, and I think that'll fuel the fire this year. So I still think the jury's out on how good this Oak Hall football team can be.
You mentioned 1A. I mean, obviously in this area, 1A football, I think there's 4 undefeated teams, and boy, they're really good programs. I don't know where it sets up. They're probably going to have to beat up on each other in the regular season and in postseason. But you got Williston, Chiefland, Union County, and Hawthorne. Do they play each other in the regular season? I haven't looked at their schedules.
Now they will. There's a huge game next Friday night, Shane. Hawthorne goes to Union County. That is a big game in Class 1R. Union County only has lost 1 game this year. Again, Andrew Thomas doing another outstanding job for the Tigers. They've got that game at home next week. They've got Dixie County this week. Dixie County is a little bit down, but I think this Union County football team will be the team, one of the teams to watch, because as you mentioned, everybody's probably going to be beating up on everybody this year. But no question, this Union County team, only loss of the year came against a good University Christian team in Jacksonville. They've beaten Columbia, which was a big win for them. They beat Newberry handily, 45-0. And then Hawthorne just did get past St. Pete Gibbs. It was a 1-point game at the half. So I want to go back to Williston, though, for a moment, Shane, because I broadcast their game on Monday night. This is a team that only won 1 game all of last year. They have not had a winning record in a long time. And Robbie Pruitt, who won 3 straight state championships at Union County back in the 90s, he's in his first year as the head coach there. They are 5-0 right now, and they look really good. Kyrie Edwards, I mentioned the transfer from Gainesville High School, over 200 yards rushing in that game, scored 3 touchdowns. His 3 touchdown runs totaled 100 yards. So it was a big night for him. Shuby Coleman hasn't had to throw the ball a lot for them, but he's got a really good arm, and I think that's something that Robbie Pruitt now wants to start working on. They were averaging just over 50 points a game going into that game against Newberry, and they won it 42-19, won it pretty handily. So watch out for the Red Devils. Right now they are the surprise team in the area.
Well, I will give you a little tip here, Mike. Robbie Pruitt's quarterbacks ain't going to throw the ball very much. They run that damn wing tee. So he does a tremendous job, but they're going to continue running it. Andy has a question here brought to you by Melvin Law. Mike, with games like Hawthorne playing St. Pete Gibbs, do you see a pattern of ex-Gators who are high school coaches like Todd Johnson, Lewis Murphy, Ahmad Black, and CI scheduling games against former teammates? Out of those, I don't think Todd Johnson coaches anymore, and I think Ahmad is just an assistant. Is Lewis still the head coach at Gibbs?
Lewis Murphy is the head coach at Gibbs, and that is how that game came about, because Cornelius and Lewis were teammates back in the mid-2000s, I believe. Here's another thing too, Shane. One thing that Cornelius told me at the beginning of the year was that they're going to try and get St. Augustine High School on the schedule, because Brandon James, who also was a teammate of his, is the offensive coordinator at St. Augustine High School. So, yes, I can absolutely see these former Gator coaches going up against each other.
Yeah, and I do know this. Play Union County, a lot of the other 1A, the bigger schools, to get games. Mike, who y'all on the call this week of?
Well, this will be my second radio broadcast of high school football this week. I had the Monday night game with Williston and Newberry. We are going to broadcast Gainesville-Buchholz tonight. I don't know how much of a game it will be. I'll be in fact, I've already told Marty Palmer, who's going to work the game with me tonight, I'll do play-by-play in the first half. You can do play-by-play in the second half. And he said, well, I better start doing my preparation then, because it might not be a game at the half.
Well, it's going to be, here's the good thing, Mike. You boys will, the second half will literally last like about 20 minutes, because it's going to be a running clock.
I agree. I think so. Last year was a 6-3 game at the half, but again, that was a different Gainesville team.
Yeah.
This is still a really good Buchholz team. They had actually originally scheduled that game for 7. It's been moved back to 7:30 with Gator homecoming this week. There's no school on Friday, so 7:30 kickoff tonight. We'll be on the air at 7 o'clock. And in addition to our coverage on 106.9 FM, Shane, we'll also have the game on the Prep Zone. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, Facebook Live, Twitter, Twitch. So that's 7 o'clock pregame tonight, 7:30 kick for GHS and Buchholz.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
And then, by the way, one quick shout out, Shane. Eastside High School, Gator has gotten this team in position now to win a district championship. They went to North Marion on Monday and beat them on the road 14-6. So Eastside now will play Santa Fe the last Friday night of October with a chance to win the district championship. So a big shout out to Eastside High School.
I looked at their schedule with another coach in the area. I think they're going to go 8-1.
Yeah, because I think they're going to beat Gainesville.
Yeah, they're going to go 8-1. That's a remarkable story for sure. Absolutely. All right, Mike, let everybody know how they can check out the Prep Zone and Main Street Daily News.
Yep, I appreciate it. I'll have a recap of tonight's game at mainstreetdailynews.com. You can also go to theprepzone.com and get a lot of good high school information. High school volleyball, we're going to be broadcasting Gainesville-Buchholz Senior Night on Monday. So we'll have live video coverage of that one as well, plus recaps at both of the websites, theprepzone.com and mainstreetdailynews.com.
Good stuff, Mike. Appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Shane. Thanks for the time.
That's Mike Ridaught from the Prep Zone and Main Street Daily News, joining the program on the Titan More Hotline. Let's get to this day in sports, which is brought to you by our good friends at Comfort. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Beat the summer heat. Summer's over, supposedly. And schedule your air conditioners tune up today, keeping you chill in the Florida heat far away. Comfort Temp Heating and Air, 352-376-2366. This day in sports, in 2017, the Vegas Golden Knights make their NHL debut in Dallas by beating the Stars. And NHL, I think, starts next week, believe it or not. That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. We're also going to have tomorrow, we'll have JC, we'll do our Peachland Dental weekend picks. And we're going to have Dave Matter, who covers the Missouri Tigers, join the program, get his thoughts on Mizzou. Let's see, we had a couple of Facebook Lives I wanted to get to. Maybe it was a text on the Titan More text line. He says, do you think AR will start playing more like he did against Utah or Tennessee? Or do you think he will continue to have games like Kentucky and USF? Hard to tell. I think he's going to be a hot, cold guy, but he's hot right now. I think what they've done the last 2 weeks, they've thrown the ball vertically down the field where there's really not a whole lot of reading. And there's not a lot of junk that can confuse him underneath. The farther you throw the ball down the field, the safer it is, people. Rick says, sure feels like summer is over. Well, Rick, walk outside later this afternoon. I think it's going to be like 80-something. But I hear you. Andy says, Facebook Live, Shane Kamari Wilson must not be ready to start. If they're starting Trey Dean again, do you think that's an analytics thing because of Mizzou's running game? I honestly don't know. we don't know from an assignment standpoint how these kids are being graded out. All we can see is Trey Dean or whoever player X is getting beat on a play here or there. We don't know. So we got to trust our coaches on that. And hopefully whoever's out there this weekend plays well. So it should be a lot of fun. Tonight's NFL game is the Broncos and the Colts. Hope you enjoyed today's program, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.